Hey everyone, this is Schism here. I have a ETC style battle report. It's a 20. My friend here is practicing for a 2,400 point ETC style tournament that's going on in the local game shop. Under the compact for ETC, Beastmen are allowed at the moment 2,700 points in this style tournament. So I showed up with a 2,500 point list. I was going to skim down to 2,400, and then we found out that Beastmen actually get 2,700 points. So I just kept my 2,500 point list and I added an extra level to one of my wizards. So this is going to be a 25-35 versus a 2,400 point Skaven. Starting on my opponent's far right, he has a unit of 30 slaves, and in there he has a chieftain with a halberd. In front of that, he's got a hell pit abomination. Right up here in front of the forest, he has scouted some slingers here. Behind that, he's got a warp lightning cannon. To the left of that, he has 40 slaves in bus formation. Then he has 30 clan rats here, and in this bunker he has his level 4 Greyseer with a Talisman of Durance. He has 3 warp tokens. For spells, he rolled up Death Frenzy, Warp Lightning, Scorch, and Howling Warp Gale. Also in that unit, there's a Warlock level 1 with Obsidian Amulet and Warp Lightning for his spell. There's another Warlock in there, level 1, Dispel Scroll. He has Warp Lightning as well. Noticing a theme? I think so. Also in this unit, he has a BSB with a Storm banner, and he has a halberd, heavy armor, and he has a shield. To the left of that unit, he has 40 more slaves. To the left of that unit, he has 40 Storm Vermin, and they have the Razored Standard. In that unit, his Warlord General is there. He is riding a Bone Breaker. He has the Ogre Blade, a Dragon Helm, and Talisman of Preservation, so some ultimate killy power and some decent defensive capabilities, and 4 wounds will definitely help him out. Also, the fact he takes up 2 spots in that front rank is pretty amazing. To the left of that, he's got 6 of the Poison Wind Globadiers. And rounding out his forces on the far left, he has a Doom Wheel. Starting on my far left, facing off against his Doom Wheel, I have 5 Ungor Raiders. Then there's a Big Piggy, Razorgore. And in my center, I have 40 Gore with hand weapon and shield, with a banner and a musician. To the right of that, I have 39 Bestigor, and they have the standard of discipline. And in that unit, I have my Beast Lord General. He has a Crown of Command, a Gnarled Hide, Armor of Destiny, and a Great Weapon. So he's going to make that unit stubborn, and he's got a defensive kit, and he's Strength 7, which is nothing to sniff at. Primal Fury should help him hit, so hopefully he'll be able to deal some pain out. Behind those 2 units, you can see I have 2 units of 5 Harpies. To the right of that unit, I have 37 Gore with a full command and additional hand weapons. In that unit, I have safely tucked in the second rank a level 2 Bray Shaman with a Dispel Scroll. He is on Beasts, and he rolled up Wild Form and Pan's Impenetrable Pelt. Also in that unit in the front rank, there's a BSB with an Armor of Silvered Steel, a Lux Stone, and a Great Weapon. And there's a level 4 in the front rank there in the far right corner of that unit, and he's got that big giant Chaos Scythe. He is a level 4 with Fencer Blades, Talisman of Preservation, and the Jagged Dagger. He is rolled on the Lore of Shadow, and for spells, he picked up Enfeebling Foe, the Withering, Miasma, and Mind Razor. Now, this is a perfect set that I personally think for Beastmen. I love it because I want my wizard in close combat with a Jagged Dagger, weapon skill 10, and he's got a 4-up ward, so he's pretty survivable with toughness 5, and I have all combat altering spells, so I have no fear of getting him in there. I don't have to worry about keeping him out of combat. I can enfeeble. I got Withering. Those are remains and plays. Awesome. I got Miasma, which is awesome. Will help everybody hit or decrease whatever I want. And Mind Razor, which is, it's okay. I'd rather have the enfeebling and the Withering. It's kind of the same effect. Either I'm preserving my units or I'm decimating a unit, but the remains in play is more important to try and siphon out some of my opponent's power dice during his spell. So I love this. I also got Wild Form, so I'm all set. I'll just be able to throw dice at whatever I want in combats and hopefully get some stuff off. To the right of that unit, I have 30 Ungor with a banner and a musician. Right in front of there, I have 2 more Razorgore. And rounding out my forces on the far right, I have 5 more Ungor Raiders. And there you see a better picture of the battle lines. You can see we're pretty much playing on a 4x4 board again. Without, of course, the Doom Wheel and my 2 units on the far left are the only things on the other side of that burning building there. So you can see we're very compact, leadership-oriented armies, and we got to make sure we stay within our leadership bubble. So my turn 1, I win the roll to turn 1, which is awesome since he out-deployed me. Well, I out-deployed him, so he get the +1 to his roll, but I managed to sneak it off anyways, and I take my Ungor Raiders to go up here and try and bait this Doom Wheel the hell away from the rest of my forces, and my Piggy goes and moves behind the building and faces to try and find an opportunity over here. Now, I wanted to charge with my Razor Gore, but I would have needed a 9 with Swift Stride to get in there. I just didn't think it was going to happen, so here I am moving up, and I angle them so I can try and keep those slingers in my front arc. And I move up hesitantly with the Ungor Raiders because I don't want him to be able to charge his slingers into them and get behind. He'd probably win combat because Ungor Raiders are pretty useless. And then he'd be free in my backfield, and I'd never find him or catch him or turn, and he would just always get away from me. So they moved up ever so hesitantly, so I will be able to get some shots off into him, but they won't be able to make it. It won't be easy for them to make that charge. It was what my aim was there. Now, seeing how his Bonebreaker takes up half the front rank of his Storm Vermin, and this unit on the far left corner of Gore here, we're in Horde formation. I just know that his Bonebreaker will do enough damage that he will probably win combat, and if I don't have those ranks, I'm going to be in some serious trouble. So I reform this unit to go bust for him, so that way at least I have a chance to be steadfast in case they do go toe-to-toe. And I know in Horde formation, all the attacks, half the attacks I put on the unit are going to have to go on this Bonebreaker, and he's just going to shrug, 95% of those right off. So I make the decision right here and now to reform these Gore to bust formation. The rest of my army moves up almost at full speed, and I take my Harpies and I fly them over the top right in front. So if nothing fancy happens, I will be able to charge his Warp Lightning Cannon or his Globadiers or whatever unit I want. Or if I have to, I can flee a charge if he tries to come after me. So in my magic phase, I rolled double ones, so that was completely useless. I would have loved to try and get some augments, some remains and plays on him so we could use some power dice, but nope. Skaven turn 1, he takes his slingers and he moves them way back to preserve them. And you can see his hell pit moved up a little bit. And the rest of he moved up the clan rats right behind the hell pit. And everything else just either stayed in place or slinked back a little bit. His Doom Wheel moves up to right in front of my Ungor Raiders. His magic phase, he starts throwing out Warp Lightnings like it's nobody's business. His first one takes out 2 of my Harpies. And then he casts it again. He polishes off the rest of the Harpies. He manages to put a wound on my Razor Gore here with his slingers. And over here, his Doom Wheel goes and just fries off 3 of my Ungor Raiders. They fail their panic, and they promptly turn tail and run. Now, his Warp Lightning Cannon right here, he rolls a misfire, and he rolls the misfire where he goes 46, 5, I don't know, some of it's D6 in a straight line in a random direction, and he rolls directly at his hell pit, goes straight through his slingers there, manages to fry 2 of them. He wounds his hell pit, he just goes straight through the regen, and he fails his regen, and then he rolls a 6 for the amount of wounds, and he fries his own hell pit on turn 1. And it does not stand back up, and it gets 2 rat swarms instead. And right now, is a giant sigh, a wave of relief just washes over me. The hell pit is no longer an issue. So, my turn 2, I take my Razor Gore, and he actually makes the charge. And I think he needed a 10 or 11 on Swift Stride. He makes it in the side. Now, I see this as a good opportunity because I'm going to get +1 for the charge. I'm going to get +1 for the flank. Hopefully, I might be able to sink a wound in. Either way, I'm at +2. And if I can just shrug off or he fails his attacks, I'm in good shape. My Ungor Raiders do pass the leadership test and reform to face. I take my other Razor Gore. I throw it into the rat swarms. And I move up with my rightmost. Now with the hell pit gone, I can just move without any worry of random movements slamming into my side or my front. So I take my wizard bunker unit, I move it up full bore right in front. You can see I took my Harpies here and I screened right in front of his bunker. So if he doesn't try and shoot him down with any sort of magic, then I will get a charge off in there. So hopefully that'll preserve my main units. And the rest of my forces moved up like so. And here you can see the Harpies. I flew them right in front of his bunker. The piggy doesn't even get a chance to attack. He gets grinded and slapped by the crew. So that was all for naught. In the combat over in the swarms, I do 3 wounds to him. He does 1 to me. I get a charge and 3 wounds. I crumble him by 3, so he's got another wound on his other rat swarm here. And you can see I moved in the movement phase. I moved my other piggy up to try and keep that unit of slaves with his hero in there away from this combat. This is Skaven at turn 2, and he takes his giant block of storm vermin here, and he charges my 40 gore here, and I choose to flee, which I think is a very pivotal move. So he tries to redirect, and he passes, but he fails to connect into my Bestigore. So that's pretty good for me. Takes his Doom Wheel, and he reforms it like so, just ignoring my Ungor Raiders. He charges his slaves here with his hero into my piggy, and he takes his slingers to redirect my level 4's unit. He takes his Globadiers, he moves them over to try and harry the Harpies, and he takes his 40 slaves here in the middle and moves them to force my Bestigore to charge him, not anything else. In the magic phase, he starts throwing out Warp Lightning like nobody's business. He manages to shred off 5 of my Bestigore. Manages to take out 3 of my Gore here. And his Doom Wheel here fries the rest of the Ungor Raiders. And another one of my Bestigore here falls to his shooting or magic. At this point, there's so many magic and shooting going on that people are just dropping right and left. In the combat over here, I managed to do 3 wounds to him. I do 1 wound to him, but due to the weight of ranks and banner, I fail. I fail my leadership. I flee straight through my Ungor Raiders. They fail their panic test, and there they go off running for the board edge. However, this Razorgore does manage to dispatch the remaining rat swarm, and he just reforms to face my turn 3. I take my Gore and I charge his slingers there. I manage to take my Razorgore. I crash it into the flanks. I take my Harpies and I crash into his general's bunker right in the center there. And I take my Bestigore and promptly launch them into these 40 slaves here. I don't really have a choice. I'm not really looking forward to having to grind down just slaves. I know I'm going to get his lord on a bone breaker into my unit, but I didn't have a choice here. I managed to rally with a Gore, which is awesome, and I just reformed to face the giant melee that's about to happen in the center of the board here. I managed to rally my Razorgore, and I turn around to face the board, but my Ungor Raiders decide they don't want any part of it, and they continue to flee for the board edge. In the combat here, I just go to town. I take off 10 slaves promptly, and he managed to fell 1 of my number in return. But he is steadfast, and his general's around his BSB, so he sticks. I managed to take out all of the slingers, and 2 of them came from my initiative for level 4, so his Jagged Dagger, he was able to give me a couple extra power dice, which is always nice. I reform my Razorgore to help assist the Ungors on the far right here. In the combat with the Harpies, I allocate 1 of them onto one of his engineers, and the other 4 I throw onto one of his level 1s. His level 4 is in the back rank now, so I can't touch him, so I managed to take out one of his level 1 Warp Lightning slingers, and he managed to fell 3 of me in return. Now, I needed like a 4, I think, to stick, and I ended up rolling a 3. So my Harpies stay in close combat, which is awesome, which will make it impossible for him to Warp Lightning me, which I'm A-okay with. Skaven, turn 3, he takes his general, much expected, on his Bonebreaker and his 40 armor-piercing Storm Vermin, and he throws them into my Bestigor. And then he reveals he has the Asshat Assassin, as usual, with a Weeping Blades and a Potion of Strength. So I'm not too happy about that, but here he is. He also takes his slaves here on the far right and charges my Ungor. That's a pitiful fight if I've ever seen one. It's like the preliminary fights at a UFC fight. You know, it goes on, and nobody's went there to see it, but you know, I guess it has to happen. And then he takes his 40 slaves here, and he moves them up to protect his Warp Lightning Cannon. He takes his Globadiers, he moves them, he starts moving them over past my Harpies here to try and redirect my level 4's unit after the slaves to try and keep it away from his wizarding bunker there. The Warp Lightning Cannon starts to mosey over towards... No, excuse me, the Doom Wheel starts to mosey on towards the main combat. He managed to fry one of the Gore here. And the big swirling melee in the corner, I managed to put a wound on his Asshat Assassin. I did 5 wounds to the Storm Vermin, 13 wounds to the slaves there, and he managed to fell 9 of my Gore. So, my Bestigor here. So, I'm starting to lose attacks now, which is never good. And he still has a hearty chunk of Storm Vermin there. I win the combat, but of course he's got more ranks, and he's got a reroll, and he's leadership 9 or 10, so he sticks around. In the combat here, I don't do anything to him. He does a wound to me. I need something ridiculous to stick, but it doesn't matter. I roll double 1, so this Harpy does not want to leave. And the Ungor slap fight over here. He does 3 wounds to me. I fail my Primal Fury, but it doesn't matter. I still roll like a boss and manage to fell 5 of him, which is just enough to break his Steadfast. And he fails his leadership, and I chase him down with the Ungor. So, score 1 for the Ungor. I didn't even have to use my Razor Gore. I feel stupid for reforming them like such, doubting the skills and tactical acumen of the Ungor. My turn 4, I try and take that Ungor unit, and I try and charge his Warp Lightning Cannon, but I fail. I rally these Ungors who are headed for the board, but they are well far away from the battle. And now I know I have his Doom Wheel looming on my far left, so I have no choice but to reform this Gore Herd to take care of this Doom Wheel. And it's not like I could even maneuver around the Bestigor or contribute to this combat, because after that combat he managed to reform, and he slid over, so he's tucked in. So this Gore unit was kind of flapping in the wind. So they reformed to face his Doom Wheel. I take my piggies and I reform to face this combat to help out against these Skaven slaves. And I charge. You can see I charged in my level 4 unit with my BSB and my level 2. In the Magi phase, I get my first spell off the game on turn 4 here, and I managed to get Miasma off on his General's unit, hopefully stifling his ability to hit me. I did roll a 6, so he's at -3, which is amazeballs, I must say. In the combat here, my Wizard happens to slay 1, and the rest of my unit tallies up 5 more kills for a total of 6. He manages to do 2 to me. Now, in bust formation, I did have equal ranks to him, but I managed to take just enough so he wasn't steadfast, and he popped, which is awesome. However, the pop did manage to take out one of my piggies, so most unfortunate for him. And the pop also took out 2 more of my Gore. So them popping was more effective than they were actually in combat. So in the combat in the center, my lone Harpy did manage to finally fail his leadership test, and he ran away. He chose not to. Well, he actually did try to chase me down, but I got away, and he stopped when he touched his Globadiers. Now, the funny part about that is I allocated my attacks on his Gracia to try and do some wounds, and I didn't get anything through. But that whole unit whiffed at trying to kill that Harpy. And mind you, he did slide over his chieftain with a halberd, and still that harpy does not want to die. And the huge swirling melee in the center. His bone breaker alone, just the rat ogre itself, did 5 wounds to me this round. It was unbelievable. The rest of his units combined only tallied up, and the warlord riding the bone breaker only tallied up for 2 more kills. But he's still got these slaves here to feed me combat, so I felled 10 of them. I managed to do 3 wounds to the storm vermin, and I finished off the assassin. So the assassin is no longer with us. So long to the dearly departed. After this combat, I choose to reform, and he also reforms. So I reformed to, so Horde's not doing me any good now, and I'm not locked in with the slaves because they popped, and they did no wounds to nothing. So I reform to go 6 wide, and then he reforms after me to match me. So now over here in Skaven turn, he managed to just come 1 inch shy of touching my gore, so I don't have to embrace the impact hits of the Doom Wheel, which is awesome. In his magic phase, he promptly goes and he warp lightnings off this lone harpy. Since he couldn't finish him in combat, he took the liberty to zap him. Also in the magic phase, he casts Scorch off on this unit, and it hits, I believe, 16 of my gore, and it kills 8 of them. So average roll in there, and then he double warp lightnings that unit again, and he managed to fell 6 more gore. So in that one turn from his magic phase alone, there's 14 gore bite the dirt here. However, when he did go to cast Scorch, he did miscast. It went off irresistibly, and he rolled a 4, so he dimensionally cascaded, taking his Greyseer into the warp. And then the template comes down, and 18 of these clan rats just vaporize. So, yeah, he managed to kill a lot of me, but he did more damage to himself in the end. However, the Warp Lightning Cannon must have fed off that Dimensional Cascade, because it went to town and just obliterated 12 of these Ungors. And they promptly failed their panic test and ran right off the board. So much for the Ungors' bittersweet victory. He throws his Globadiers. He managed to fell one of my gore, but then he managed to throw one on his own feet and kill one of his own. In the combat in the middle, I managed to kill 9 of his Storm Vermin, and I put a wound on his Bonebreaker, since now I have to allocate some of his attacks. But since he reformed this way, I managed to allocate many, or I should say most of my attacks on the unit, which is what I want. I want the combat res. I want him to lose steadfast, but I'm just dying too fast. The Bonebreaker and the Warlord went to town, and just, he's at -3 weapon skill this turn, and still he managed to kill 8 of my best to gore, and I'm starting to panic because now I think I only have 8 of them left, so I don't want to lose those 500 points. My turn 5, I take my Razor Gore and I slam it into his Warp Lightning Cannon. I take my level 4's unit and I go into his Poison Wind Globadiers. And I take my Gore Herd down the bottom left and I slam into his Doom Wheel, So in the magic phase, I managed to get off wild form on this unit, and I also get my asthma off again, but this time I only got -2. With his level 4 gone, magic's a lot easier for me to handle here. The Razor Gore promptly dispatches the Warp Lightning Cannon. In the combat here, my Sorcerer went again, and he gacked 2 of the Poison Wind Globadiers. Having initiative 4 and going first ensures that he will be able to hopefully swing at least and have the opportunity to kill some before the rest of the unit goes. So, yeah, I take a wound, and I promptly kill the rest of them. And I reform to face his bunker here. Now, I know he's just going to take his characters out and do the Penny Hill show around me. But, I have to do it. In hindsight, I wish I reformed to face the Storm Vermin and help out in that combat. Over here, I completely whiff. I fail my Primal Fury. so I don't get rerolls in this combat. And I whiff. I don't get any wounds. He managed to grind a couple of my gore down. He kills 3 of me, but I still win by rank banner and by a banner and a charge. So he takes his leadership. He fails. He rolls 11, but I managed to roll a 12 to catch him. So that was most unfortunate, but you can see here it takes the gore way out of the game now. So the Doom Wheel kind of did its job. And this nasty melee in the middle, he managed to fell 3 of my best gores. You know, the magic's really starting to kick in now, and I managed to, you know, he went from killing, 10, 9, 8 a turn to now he's just 3. But I did manage to kill 7 of his storm vermin, so I win the combat once again, but he sticks around. Skaven turn 5, he takes his characters out of the units. You can see out of my line of sight, and he inches back that unit ever so slightly. So now I can't pick up the points for his BSB or this Warlock Engineer here. The combat in the middle, he kills 2 more of my Bestigor. I kill 5 of him. So now I only have 3 Bestigor left, and there's 1 more round of combat. Or 2 more rounds of combat they have to survive. So I'm not thrilled about this. So I'm in preservation mode. I just gotta hope he rolls terrible. And he reforms like so. So he's got his rank back. Beastmen turn 6. I take my Razorgore, and he needed a 10 to get in here. It was a long bomb charge, and this piggy made it. He went all the way to the market. So in the market, and he's gonna have himself some fun. I also take my level 4's unit, but I fail the charge. I just wanted to get those points off the board, but they failed. But luckily, the piggy made it. So in my last magic phase, I manage. Well, the first spell I go for is enfeebling foe, just to try to reduce his strength so that my Bestigor will be more likely to survive. And he dispels that, so I have to go to plan B. And this is the first time I've ever used Pan's Impenetrable Pelt, but I throw it on my Beast Lord, so now he's toughness 8. I managed, with 3 dice left, I 1 dice miasma. And he threw all his dice at getting rid of enfeebling foe. I got it off on a high level, so he had to throw all his dice to get rid of it. So I cast the pelt on my lord, so now he's toughness 8. So he lets that go through. Then I get the miasma up on a unit, but I only roll a 1, so he's only -1 weapon skill, so no big deal. And then my last 2 dice, I eke out wild form. So now my general is strength 8, toughness 8, and mind you, he has no champion in this unit right now. So this piggy here, he crashes into the side of that unit. He managed to kill 2, and he stomps on another. He breaks the unit, and the banner falls, but he does not catch the unit. And here you can see I died laughing because there's this big, nasty combat going in the center. It's been grinding out for turn and turn. In the background, you have 2 Skaven running from a giant pig. For some reason, I found this immensely humorous. It's just so comical. This pig is just chasing around these rats in the backfield. In the combat here, I issue a challenge, and he has no choice but to accept with his Bonebreaker. Otherwise, those attacks would be wasted. So my Beast Lord tanks for the Bestigor unit, and the Warlord on the Bonebreaker does nothing. He needs, he's -1 weapon skill, so he needs 4s to hit me, and he's 6s to wound me. I'm toughness 8. I still got my 4 up board, but nothing. I don't even have to take a save. He just doesn't roll any 6s to wound me. So my general successfully tanks for this unit, and unexpectedly actually rolls. He gets 3 hits. He gets 4 hits, and he's strength 8. So he needs 2s to wound. He gets 4 wounds, and that strength 8 actually negates his 2-up armor he's got on that bad boy. So he goes straight to ward save, and he fails 3 out of the 4, and so he takes the last 3 wounds off the general, and there goes. Yeah, so there goes the Skaven general. And the rest of the combat, my 3 Bestigor managed to take 3 more of the Storm Vermin down, and my Bestigor survive, and he breaks but I do not catch him. I roll a 3. I barely even scamper up. He rolls like an 11, and he gets away from me. His turn 6, he fails to rally, and the Storm Vermin run off the board. And that signifies the end of the game. And there's just a final overview. You can see the whole left of the battlefield is just all dead bodies. It was so many dead bodies in this game. You can see I got my bus of gore down the very bottom. I got 5 Ungor Bowmen off to the right of the screen there. You can't really see them. And I have a Razor Gore, my level 4's unit. I got 3 Best of Gore and my Beast Lord. And he still has his Warlock in the center here, and he's got his BSB standing proudly in the middle of the map. And there's a close-up of my Beast Lord, one of my favorite models. He was a boss this game. Every round of no round of combat did he kill less than, with 4 attacks, did he kill less than 3 models. And taking out the general in that one epic showdown, even though he was strength 8 and toughness 8. I cannot give it up for this guy. He overperformed, and I am most proud of my Beast Lord this game. So he was a boss this game, so I gave him a nice close-up picture here to do him a little justice. Some notes about this game. First off and foremost, I would like to thank the Warp Cannon. Turn 1 taking out his own Hell Pit. I mean, who could have guessed? That is one of the most wonkiest turn 1 things I've seen happen in any game. And that really changed the whole format of how this battle was fought. With a Hell Pit in the game, my game plan was to throw the Ungor and try and mind razor him into that. You know, I don't care if the Ungor die. Hopefully I can get a reroll to hit, and that'll be strength 6. I don't know. Force enough regens with him. That was my only plan. That, and I was going to chaff it up. You notice on that side of the board, once I saw the Hell Pit go down, I threw down 2 Piggies and some Ungor Raiders, and even the Ungor I put over there just to tie up that Hell Pit, because I really don't have too many answers for it. But fortunately, I didn't even have to bring a cannon, and it got cannoned off the board. So that was huge swing in the battle in turn 1. I really can't thank the Warp Lightning Cannon enough. Also in this game, the Skaven Lightning Button, how vicious the bunker was. Throwing out the potential of, and lowballing the casting cost, because if you fail the cast and you throw 1 dice, who cares, at the Warp Lightning, at the, those lightning spells. It was just being able to get upwards of 3 of those off. D6 strength 5 hits is a chaff killer, and not to mention it can just shred through infantry and even like cavalry, or even cavalry at that point. That was, I learned a harsh lesson. Thank you to the Harpies for at least tying up that unit for a few rounds, because that got brutal. If you got a good magic phase, and every Skaven magic phase this game was, he rolled an 8 or 9 every phase, so he was given an ample amount of dice to throw at those spells. So yeah, that was vicious. Leadership bubble. These 2 armies, I mean, it was evident by the deployment and how this battle was fought. These are 2 armies that are heavily reliant on leadership bubbles, and so we really didn't even get to utilize most of the board. We played this game pretty much on a War Machine board. It was a 4x4 battle, so everything was kind of slammed into that one section. And it just goes to show, leadership is so important, especially for the Beastmen with those Primal Furies. I really had to, make sure that I had everything in check. And those units outlaying outside that leadership, anything outside that 12-inch bubble between the rerolls and the leadership 10, is just prone to fail. And you saw my flanks, they kept failing, and then they'd rally and they'd fail. It caused panic. It's so dangerous. So it's very important, especially in a game with Primal Fury, to keep that leadership bubble. And same with him, with adding his ranks to his leadership, and all those ranks. Luckily I had enough bus formation to break his steadfast. Otherwise I could get stuck in a clan rat unit forever. In this game, I love the spells I rolled up. My first 2 magic phases, unfortunately, I rolled very, very impoverished magic phases. I think I rolled a 4 for the second one, and double 1's the first one, and then he was able to Dispel Scroll in the third one. I just couldn't get any magic till turn 4, but when it came into effect, it severely debilitated his ability to hit me and do some serious damage. So I was very happy with the spells I rolled up, but it took me forever to get that magic phase rolling. And once my my level 4 got in combat, started added a couple extra power dice with the kills he got from the Jagged Dagger. That really helped. But I love that magic set. A couple of beast spells, guarantee me a wild form. You never know. It's always handy for the toughness if you're not in combat. And then enfeebling and the withering. I cast enfeebling every turn of combat, but he always stopped it, which just allowed me to get miasma off and things to preserve my units, which is awesome because Bestigor don't need any help killing things, they just need help staying alive, as evidenced in the first couple of rounds of combat where they died in droves. And that just goes into my last note. The Shadow with Beastmen is pretty awesome, and Shadow with Beast, I love the combination. The only problem I can really see is the lack of any range really potential. I mean, Pit of Shades, yeah, but if you don't roll them, I don't have any sort of, well, the whole Beastman army lacks from sorts of range combat. And, against a monster, I really need to affect their strength or their toughness for me to be able to take them down. Luckily, the Warp Lightning Cannon took it out for me. So that was a great game. What a bloody game. Went to the bitter end. Thank you very much. And the Beastman just got very lucky. This game could have easily went to the Skaven at any point. Had his Hell Pit lived or his level 4 not cascaded, and I had an extra 135 points, and it still came down to him actually killing himself that allowed me to take this victory. So, that extra 300 points might be a bit much, but that extra 100 points, man, if I didn't have it, I would have been in a lot more trouble. So, thank you very much. Bye.